Next up on No Surprises.
That was like one of the hardest parts of my entire career, because I had defined myself and my value to our company as a person who coded and built websites. And Mal had to kind of help me rebuild my understanding of who I was to Week of the Website by saying, like, you're really good at talking to people. You need to be on business development. You're really good at building relationships with people. You need to, lead up our
we know you're the
our
face
pro
girl of this
program.
company. Let's be honest.
Like,
I am a behind the scenes bitch. You are the face girl. I would love to fall and fade into the background and not be a scene anymore,
Yeah. So, I mean, in doing that, I feel like she helped redefine what my career could look like going forward as a part of our business. And really, truly, I will say in the last 2 months, I've started to feel that click in, and I understand now that, like, I have more value to her and to Week of the Website than just like someone who's just building websites, which is silly because that's like the core of our work, right? But still, like, it has been really affirming, and I think that's like the real push from Mal to make that happen.
All you have to say is, I'm Kelsey Gilbert Crying, unless you want to swap it and say I'm Kelsey Gilbert Crying and I just introduce myself and then you say the intro. Hi, I'm Mallory Ulazik.
And I'm Gilbert Hill. No.
One more time from the top.
Who am I?
Hi, I'm Mallory Ulazik.
And I'm Kelsey Gilbert Crying.
And this is No Surprises, a look inside the ambitious, joyful, and occasionally terrifying journey of running a web design agency.
It's true. That is what we were doing. Last time we recorded one of these, it was just you and me, right, Mal?
Yes.
But today we have 1.5 new participants. The fabulous Reyna Abigale Levine. We have these calls.
Is this the half? Is this the half?
Sorry, no, that's the other half. Who's in the back here, Reyna?
This is my co-producer Daisy.
Oh,
Daisy, welcome. Daisy, welcome to the show.
Daisy and Dexter. So we have these calls, and we would do these like prep conversations. And yesterday we realized we love the prep conversations. It was a little bit easier. It flowed a little bit more. And so this week we're going to try out having Reyna kind of be a part of the conversation with Mal and myself and see how that goes.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Let's make some magic.
Let's do it. Let's see. In the last conversation we had yesterday, we all ended up crying. So let's see if my cry magic happens again. I haven't cried today yet, so let's see.
Let's do it. It's gonna be great.
Awesome. Well, today's episode is gonna be all about collaboration. So Reyna, tell us about it.
Yeah, I'm super excited to be here talking about collaboration. I mean, I feel like you're the collaboration queens. You met, you didn't really know each other that well, and decided to sort of go whole hog and become not only business partners, but you then sort of became best friends. And as someone whose parents own a business together, who they're very much together and still in love, it's a really fascinating and interesting dynamic when you have two people who really, truly, deeply know each other and appreciate each other, and then can create something that is fulfilling and interesting and thought-provoking and creative, which is what you've done with Week of the Website. So I thought where we could sort of start off, I think I'd love for each of you to sort of describe each other first.
What a fun question.
Yeah.
A real When Harry Met Sally moment.
Yeah. I know this podcast isn't about this, but I will tell you that it's taking all of my energy not to ask you, Reyna, about your experience of having your parents own a business together. And also, if this was the Esther Perel podcast, we'd be like, it's interesting that you then decided to work with Mallory and Kelsey.
Yeah. Exactly.
Very interesting.
Interesting.
It's like, oh, these are my
Interesting.
lesbian parents.
Yes.
Welcome to the show.
Here we are. Mom and mom.
They marry each other. Yeah. Can I introduce Mallory?
Please.
Okay. So this is Mallory Ulazic. We are business partners. We are best friends. We are sometimes roommates. We are platonic life partners, I think. Mallory is brilliant. Mallory is empathetic. Mallory is a really, really, really good dog mom. She's an immensely curious person who is always driven to explore, whether it's her own identity or a different place. She does financial stuff and marketing things, and overall is a wonderful ballast for myself and our company, even though sometimes we're a little bratty about being held afloat. And she's just the best. There's no one in the world I'd rather do this with.
Well, then I get to introduce Kelsey. This is Kelsey Gilbert Kryling. Kelsey and I, when we met, I met her and was taken by, I'm going to use the word effervescent. It was aspirational. It was something that I never quite experienced on this level, where I was like, wow, this person is just whip smart, hysterically funny, and just brings a lot of joy and character to everything that they do. And I was not like that myself, and so I really wanted to be a lot more like Kelsey when I met her, and roped her into this wild Mr. Toad's wild ride called Week of the Website with me. And couldn't be more thrilled, because like Kelsey said, we've been on this journey. It started as business partners, then we became best friends, and the occasional roommate. And that has meant that we spend an exorbitant amount of time with each other. And so I've had the absolute pleasure of not only knowing Kelsey as a human being when I met her, but knowing her now and knowing the evolution of who she is, and who she's become, which is a mother to her son Jasper, a wife, an incredible friend, a sister for all intents and purposes to myself, a support system to many, and just like an invaluable piece of my life and a lot of the lives that she touches around her. So I feel really lucky to be smart enough to have roped you in.
Well, I always think it's funny.
My own horn. I choose people really well.
Well, I always think it's really funny when you say like that you like admire, I don't know what the word you used was, but I think it's like we were very much in our own little mutual admiration society when we first met each other, because I will never forget sitting at this dinner table, at this dinner club, this like cooking club we both were a part of. And I remember she was talking about like the challenges of hiring and training employees at her multiple retail shops. And I just remember sitting there being like, how old is this woman? Like, there's no way she's my age-ish and like way smart. Like, I could not fathom that a person who was born in a year that started with the same number as mine could even be like in that space. And so, I mean, I will admit that when she like brought this idea to me about maybe working together, I mean, being like, why would this girl want to work with me? I've barely been an employee, much less had one.
In the limited time that I've been working with you guys, it's been like one of the aspects of collaboration that I feel is like pretty foundational to your relationship and the way you work together is the mutual respect that you have, and the deep understanding and the deep work that you've done within yourselves and with each other to know the other person and know, like really see them and really hear them. And that's like a really admirable thing to do both professionally and personally. And so it's a pleasure to work with you guys. Let's talk a little bit about your collaboration styles in terms of how you built your business. Would you say that your business evolved around the skill sets that you had, or that people sort of were asking for particular projects and your skills started to go around what was being requested? How did that evolve?
That's a really interesting question. I feel like it was a little bit of both, and also candidly us just sort of saying yes to things that sounded like fun, even if we maybe didn't necessarily have the experience to back it up. Like when we started,
is bliss. That's how we were
exactly.
successful. The more you know,
like,
it's not necessarily the better things go. So
truly. But yeah, when we got started, we really had this plan that we were gonna like take 6 months, build a business plan, save up money, really define what we wanted to do, like build everything and be ready to go when we were ready to start. And like all good plans, it immediately fell apart because we had these two really great opportunities come to us. One was to build a website for a new restaurant in Chicago called Doves, which is now, almost 10 years old, I guess, if you can believe it. And one was to produce this food festival that was going to be an offshoot of an existing festival in Brooklyn. And Mal and I really went into it with this sense of like, there's no way we're going to get either of these projects. So let's just pitch them for practice. Let's use it as an opportunity to kind of like try our hand at explaining who we are and what we do and our skills and abilities. And we did it. We went like, all in and ended up getting both projects. And so it was very funny because we were sitting there with like a check in my hands, trying to figure out where to put it. And I think we continued on that path of doing these things that like sounded really interesting to us, that we had some skills to do. And it really wasn't until we very, very clearly defined the business in 2019 that we honed in on just doing web design. And I think that was really good for us because it ultimately like bred this very, very strong project management background that drove us. But yeah, I think we really brought like maybe 20% of the skills necessary and 80% of like enthusiasm and curiosity to beginning our work together.
Yeah. I think the one way we did actually come and use the skills that we had was when we were defining exactly what we were going to do. So it wasn't like we got a web design project in a vacuum, right? You had been building websites before. For the event production, that was a little bit left field because neither of us had ever done that before. And we were like, let's find out. But the way that we have approached day-to-day business, running the company, who does what, especially now, but it has been the case since the beginning, is we've really focused on our skill sets and have built a business around that to utilize our strengths and bring those together and find a way in which our strengths can play off of each other. So in the beginning with Week of the Website, that was me doing project management and you doing the designing. With event production, it was you doing a lot of programming and me doing like the nuts and bolts of the production pieces, because you had done programming before. So we married our skill sets to create something that we knew we could be successful with. Instead of recreating the wheel in totality, we started with a rudimentary design and then we kind of inflicted our pieces of flair on it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's really great. So both of you started out as practitioners, Mal more as the project management and Kelsey more as a developer and designer. Can you talk a little bit about, in the evolution of your business, there was, I'm sure, a transitionary period of time where you had to go from practitioners to people who had to sort of change up their skill sets and actually run the business that you built with other project managers and other developers. Can you talk a little bit about that transition time and like how and when that happened?
Oh man, it's been an evolution. This like started, so we stopped being the practitioners fully around 2019. We started working with other people and expanding a little bit earlier than that, when we started working with contractors to help us build and execute the sites. And then we would bring in project managers to do it. So it's been a sort of slow evolution to take us completely off being practitioners to just running the business, right? We've talked a little bit about how that is just like kind of a natural evolution of the growth of work, and when you own a business, it's just going to end up happening. Like you have to go from doing to overseeing and taking the business to the next step. And we knew that there was no way we were going to be able to build upon what we had now if we weren't offloading some of the executable work so that we could focus on the bigger picture things. So we started evolving into this place slowly, because you can't just rip the Band-Aid off. We did that to a certain extent, and it does create an absolute bottleneck in your growth because of overhead, right? And that was a really big problem to solve for about 2 years. Is how do we adjust our pricing, our business model to account for this additional overhead that's not going into our work anymore with us being practitioners? And that's like kind of the sticky wicket with every company that's like us, where we're bootstrapping, we're putting in our time and energy, and now we have to go to paying to people. So we evolved that decently slow, but we did eventually have to rip off the Band-Aid. And then it becomes another bottleneck of, okay, now what are we doing now? What are we owning? And it wasn't until pretty recently, you know, Kels had taken time off to start a family. And when she came back, we were in this moment of, all right, now we have to divide and conquer, because there are 4 main aspects of our business from an overhead perspective: sales, marketing, business development, operations. Well, finances are in there too. I should say sales and business development go together. Marketing, operations, finance. I have always owned the finance part. That is something I've been doing since I was 24. So it just comes really natural to me at this point. Growing and scaling things like that, that's easy. I get it. It's not easy, but I get it. And I know how to manipulate it to be simple-ish for us. And marketing,
she's got 2 years of experience, ladies and gentlemen.
So from the marketing side of things, and that was something that I was like, I'm going to own this. That was something that we knew was going to become a huge piece of the puzzle of how we went out and found work. You know, we have the intake process that we were molding, but we hadn't really started thinking about actual marketing strategy to start bringing people to us prior to next year, because we haven't even started rolling it out yet. And this is a part of it, right? Like being on a web series, doing a web series and talking about what we do. Prior to this, we've just been reacting to the business we'd been getting. You know, you're not going to grow past a certain amount if you're doing that. And so we knew we were going to have to be more proactive. That's going to be a big piece of the puzzle. So we had to build that team. And then Kelsey, you started working on your individual pieces.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it like we had recognized that for me to be building websites just like wasn't sustainable in the long term, because there were so many other pieces of the business to be working on. And like, it really came down to a point where, you know, I remember us having so many conversations about now feeling like I have to carry so much of the business side of our business on my own. And I remember feeling like, well, I feel like I'm carrying so much of the like how we make money part of the business on my own. And I think that was probably like the first really significant warning sign for us, because when that dynamic of our business is out of balance, like it's not good for us as a company, it's not good for us as people. And so I think we had tried to start moving towards this path of me being off of building projects solely for a while, but it happened all at once. I was pregnant and I had my son a month early on the Wednesday of a week of the website project. And I was out, like I was done. I couldn't finish that project. And it was going to be one of my last projects anyway, but it was a very like abrupt shift. And I think on top of feeling like I was really struggling as a new mom, really struggling to understand like how to work and parent. I also found that when I came back, I was very relieved to not be building websites because it takes such a high level of creativity and such a high level of like focus and also like openness to feedback and criticism, which was like not something I had access to at that point in my life. But I then felt like immensely adrift. Mal had worked so hard to keep the business running while I was out, and she really had to do a lot of it on her own. And so, by the time I was able to like come fully back from, the short time I took away on mat leave, I was there like, okay, like what the hell do I do? What is my job now? How do I help this company if I'm not, who am I if I'm not the developer? What do I do if I'm not the person who is driving that side of our business? And Mal did such an amazing job, I think, despite being probably exhausted and incredibly burnt out. Like, I think she had to have felt on some level like, can you please help me run our business? Like, for God's sakes, like I've been doing all of this and I'm over here with like a baby, like, I'm sorry. And it was one of the most amazing things that Mal did to help us kind of like find our balance again is she just straight up made an org chart and was like, okay, here are the things that I am going to own. Here are the things that you're going to own. Here is how we're going to do this. This is what this person's going to do. This is what this person's going to do. And, at that point, I felt very like, that was like one of the hardest parts of my entire career, because I had defined myself and my value to our company as a person who coded and built websites. And Mal had to kind of help me rebuild my understanding of who I was to Week of the Website by saying like, you're really good at talking to people. You need to be on business development. You're really good at building relationships with people. You need to, lead up our
we know you're the face girl of
program.
This company. Let's be honest. Like, I am a behind the scenes bitch. You are the face girl. I would love to fall and fade into the background and not be a scene anymore,
Yeah. So, I mean, in doing that, I feel like she helped redefine what my career could look like going forward as a part of our business. And really, truly, I will say in the last 2 months, I've started to feel that click in. And I understand now that like I have more value to her and to Week of the Website than just like someone who's just building websites, which is silly because that's like the core of our work, right? But still, like it has been really affirming, and I think that's like the real push from Mal to make that happen.
Yeah, that's really incredibly powerful and definitely a testament to the relationship that you've built together. It's like really a gift to be able to give back to each other in that way. Let's talk a little.
I don't know that it's a relationship people fully understand. Like, I think it's hard to quantify when people are like, so what are you and Mallory to each other? And it's like,
so she lives in your basement sometimes?
Everything? I don't know what to tell you. Like, she's my best friend, she's my business partner.
We've given each other the space, and this has been part of our whole shtick about starting a company from the get. Is like, we want this to serve our lives. We don't want it to control our lives. Now, asterisk is being that like, obviously we're building a successful company. And sacrifices have to take place. The sacrifices would take place in any lifetime. The beauty of our sacrifice, and one of the perks of being a business owner, of the few that I love to focus on, because sometimes there are some cons and you're like, damn it. But is that we get to control how this affects our lives to some degree, because the buck stops with us. We ultimately call the shots. And so in doing that, we've always been very clear with each other that it's very important for us to make sure that our own lives are being tended to, and that it's not just work all the time. Now, I will say I'm definitely in a place where I'm very open to just like leaning into the work piece, but we are human beings. We are entitled to change our mind. We are entitled to have separate feelings. We can feel differently about these things. We don't always have to sit there. We don't have to agree on everything. What we do need to do is just be respectful of the other person and give them space to be able to live their lives. Because if we're not happy, the business isn't going to work. It's just not. And we've given each other the space to do that. Myself with Kelsey, and understanding that starting a family, even though I don't have one, is complicated, especially when you are self-employed. And there are a lot of people who you are responsible for to some extent outside of just your family. And that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself. And I think it's really, what I think I'm being praised for should in fact be something that is really standard. I think that it's missing in a lot of work culture. It is the one thing that I will just absolutely rant about, is the idea of busyness and what that means, and what that shows people versus how can we work this so that it enriches our lives. Kelsey has also been there for me in traumatic periods of my life where, I'm floating and I'm making all of these life choices that are a little bit counterculture, and a lot of people don't understand like why Mallory doesn't have an apartment, and it's because I've chosen a life of being a nomad. Like, for the time being, like, I live in Kelsey's basement, and it is wild how accepting this has been. And I know a lot of folks, and I love my parents, and they're probably watching this, and I love you all. And they have definitely always been like, you can always come home, and that is wonderful. This is a choice at this point. It's not like I'm destitute. It's like, I actually really like being able to travel and take Dexter places. And Kelsey and her husband, Zach, and of course, Jasper, have opened their homes up not only to myself, and my dog, and being able to being sat down. The type of person I am, I would never accept it unless someone like literally told me to do it. But being sat down by Kelsey and her husband and being like, we want you to know that you have a home here. The room downstairs is yours whenever you need it. You are welcome. And to continually reinforce that, as I have been with them in and out for, stints here and there, is really special. And it gives me the ability to be like, oh, I can do this. It isn't impossible. I can lean on people just as much as they lean on me. That's nice. And I think that's really rare, because, we live in a society right now, especially in the US, where everyone is very like every man for themselves. And it really is just like, should be way more community based. We really got to help each other out. We cannot, in this economy, in this world, this day and age, you think we're out here trying to raw dog reality on our own? Absolutely not. No. That's why I got this little guy who is like, his face always looks like, oh, woman, stop hugging me. His face is literally like, stop it.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's just a really incredible thing, this friendship and like level of openness that you've cultivated in order to really collaborate on things beyond your personal relationship. And I think as a contractor with Week of the Website, I definitely feel like you're also, while you have this special relationship between the two of you, so you sort of extend all of the contractors get the benefit of that via osmosis. And I talk a little bit about how you collaborate internally with the contractors and various employees of Week of the Website. Let's talk about some of the tools you use. We're on Slack.
Right.
Take
We're on
advantage
Slack.
of.
We have random Slack channels so that people can share things about their daily lives as much as we have to be in Slack for our work channels. You know, we have Kelsey started the pets and plants and kids. We have random, we're always sharing little tidbits about ourselves that allow you to get to know someone on a personal level, because we haven't met a lot of folks in person ever. And this is a company that's been around for like 9 years. And some of these folks have been contracting with us for a really long time. And I like just met some of them. I met Justin and Shelly for the first time.
Yeah.
And Anna.
In New York at Circle Day.
Oh my God, in New York.
Yeah.
And I was just like, here's what you're like in person. This is wild. But I felt like I knew them already. I mean, so well, because we're constantly on Slack together.
Yeah. Well, and I think for people who freelance, it's like, it's really isolating. You know, you don't get the benefit of having that kind of like workplace environment. And so I think that's one of the things that we've tried to, you know, build within the team, is that opportunity to reach out and like chat with other people. And it's really fun because like we've seen different relationships, not like romantic relationships, but different working relationships develop and grow from our team spiraling outward. And like there's projects that some of our PMs and devs have worked on, like for clients who aren't a fit for the Week of the Website process. And so I love this idea that we can bring people in context to each other and let them find, you know, that spark or connection. And I feel like everyone grows and learns so much. Like in our dev channel, you know, we always have people throwing questions out or problems like, hey, I want to do this on my, you know, client site. Has anyone done something similar? Or what do you think about this? And I think that just helps people. Like we do these dev stand-ups periodically where sometimes we'll do just like a show and tell, and we'll have the, you know, devs like show off some work that they've been doing lately, and the other team members can ask them questions. And I think like for a lot of people, they assume that if they're going to contract with a company, they're not like a part of the company. But I think we have kind of this inverse where I feel like the core of the Week of the Website experience is the devs, the PMs, and then the rest of us are sort of like in orbit and in service of keeping things moving slow, like, you know, smoothly, and optimizing things as much as we can so that that can keep going.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That dev channel is incredible.
It's really cool.
People don't realize the power of it. And how many times I've talked to some of our folks and been like, if you ask the dev channel yet, they'll probably, someone has probably built this. And it's every like single one of our team members, the PM channel goes the same. Like we do monthly meetups where we just like, they used to be a little like, it'll be like company updates, and then it'll be like free form. Like I've started doing like, tell me the hard things that you've run into with clients and let's workshop how you work through them. And those are really powerful too, because it's like no one's an island here. We all have each other to lean on to support, and we reinforce that as much as we can whenever we can, whether it's on these stand-ups or in Slack channels or in client calls where it's like throw it out to the dev channel. We do have the resource of an entire team. And in that case, many heads are better than one. I always tell folks, I'm like, if it's going to take you more than a half hour to figure this out, just throw it in the dev channel and see if someone knows how to do it. It's not worth burning your own time and energy. There's a faster way to do it. Work smarter, not harder.
I also think that's like a selling point for why someone would want to choose to work with a company like us instead of a solo freelancer is, you know, I think we get to have like this incredible volume of knowledge that's divided across, you know, a much larger group of people, and that's like very hard to come by in one person.
Yeah, for sure. We're coming near to the end of our time together for this session, but I want to ask each of you one last question, and it's really, if I was whether a freelancer or a full-time employee somewhere, what are the top one or two things that you would recommend for people to become a better collaborator?
Drop the ego, but not 100%. So you have to be able to see past yourself and the desire to be right, when really what is at the heart of collaboration is being open and vulnerable enough to share your ideas, to let those ideas be the thing that grows, and let your ego take a back seat, because you don't need it to be the idea. You maybe just need it to be a piece of the idea, because ultimately the whole point of collaboration is to draw on people's strengths and brain power. Because we all think differently, that variety is what will ultimately make your message, project, whatever, stand out more, because you are becoming more approachable in a way to larger groups of people just by observing more feedback. The reason I say don't drop it all the way is because also part of the collaborative spirit is being able to advocate for yourself or a certain position, especially if you're passionate about it. And that's where I'm like, I don't like dropping ego 100%, because I feel like sometimes that ego is attached to passion, and passion is what really makes people buy into an idea. So it's like, let yourself take a backseat, let the idea be the thing that evolves, let that be a living, breathing thing when you're collaborating. But certainly don't drop it all the way, so that you can still advocate for your ideas and explain what you're trying to do. So I always find that works really well. Remembering that, like, I am not every person on the planet in one brain, and that this will only be better with more input. So I should probably just shut the hell up and let other people make my idea better. Yeah, that's mine.
We have two things that one that we've been doing for a good long time, and one that is newer, that are like tactics. And Mal and I both have very strong personalities. We both are like passionate, interesting people, or interested people, I should say.
Wait,
I think
you're
we're
not
kind of
interesting?
interesting. I think I'm interesting, but I'm not gonna like say that on a vodcast.
Why not?
Well, okay,
Own it, baby.
So one of the things that we heard on another podcast years ago, or I did on a road trip, was when you come up to a problem and two people have differing takes on it, doing like a gut check and asking, how much do you care about this? Like scale of 1 to 10. And if you're at a 2, but you're fighting really hard to get your way, and the other person is at like a 7, then they kind of get the right of way. Like if you don't care, but you're just holding your ground for the sake of holding your ground, that's not really a good time to push for that, because the other person really cares about it. I think that's very important to Mallory and I, is like understanding what things are important to each other and knowing when to push and when to back off. Right?
I mean, if people could hear some of the arguments we have, where finally we come around and be like, how much do you care about this? And you're like, a 2.
Like, why are we even talking about this? This is stupid. Do it the way you want to.
And we're just like, meanwhile, I'm like, I'm just falling into the debate spiral with the debate queen. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, I want to be right too.
Yeah. And the other thing that we it like came via Twitter, and then my husband started doing it, and Mal just pulled it with me earlier in the conference room, is asking like, are you open to some feedback at this moment? Like, are you open to some design feedback? Are you open to some constructive criticism? And what I like about it is that, like, no one's going to say no, but it does give you a second to be like, oh, okay, this person's going to tell me something that I need to like accept with grace because they mean it to be helpful and useful. And it just gives you that minute to click in and be like, okay, I'm switching from creator mode to listening mode. And I loved it. Like, earlier we were working on a redesign of a website or a web page on our own site, and I was just like, kind of like we were just brainstorming, and Mal was like, are you open to some design feedback right now? And got up in front of the big screen and was pointing, and I felt like Oh, God. I mean, when we do client calls, you're going into them knowing you're going to get feedback. You're going to get collaborative feedback from the client, and that's what those are there for. But it still takes a lot to sit there and have someone tell you what they don't like about it. But you go into that call in that mindset. And I think what people forget sometimes in the spirit of collaboration is that, especially when someone's been working really hard on something, there has to be a transitionary point between I'm working really hard on this and I'm ready to make it better. And like whatever you can do to help them get across the divide between those two things, I think is great as a collaborator, because if you're here and you're not ready to go to that collaborative state, I think that's when people like hold really tightly. And I don't know. Yeah, I just really like that we've been doing that lately. No, thank you so much for doing this. I think it's really special to be able to have these conversations. Mal and I obviously talk to each other all the time, but I don't know how often we get to talk with each other like this. So that's really nice.
Subscribe to where you get your podcasts. You can watch this delightfulness on YouTube, or our website is weekofthewebsite.com. You can also find us on Instagram at weekofthewebsite. Give us a follow, please.
Well, thank you all. This was great as always.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Reyna. You are a delight. Thank you.
It was great. So are you. Thank you.
Bye.